Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 of your pharmacy procedures course. This week we are going to be covering chapter 2, which is all about multiplication and division of decimals. So as you go through this chapter, I want to point out a few things. They're going to go through and talk to you a lot about how to do multiplying and dividing of decimals by hand. And you know, it's great if you can do them by hand. You know, it's a great way to be able to check your skills, things like that. But ultimately, in the real world, we're not going to be using, you know, multiplying by hand frequently. Yes, you might do it if it's just one problem here and there. But if you have to do any kind of, you know, large amount of calculations, you're going to have a calculator. So keep that in mind as you're working on this, that yes, it's great to have these skills. Yes, it's great to know how to do these by hand, as they say. But it, you know, ultimately, it's really important for you to know how to use your calculator to do these. So we're going to look at both pieces. So the first thing they're going to talk about is multiplying decimals. And so what they're going to talk about here is the fact that when you multiply two things with decimals, the first thing that you're going to do is you're just going to multiply the number parts. You don't worry at all about the decimals. And then at the end is when you worry about decimals, when you're multiplying. So here's an example. We have 2 decimal places in the first number, so 0.35, that's 2 places. And we have 1 in the second number, so that's 1 place. So that means we have to have a total of 3 places in the answer. So we multiply the numbers just as if we were multiplying whole numbers. You know, 5 times 5 is 25, carry your 2. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. So we would have had 175 on the bottom. Then we move that decimal 3 places to the left. So we always start at the back and move it 3 places. That's how we got the decimal point where it is. And we always are going to put a 0 in front of the decimal just to make sure that we don't make errors. So that's what they're going to show you in the first section on multiplying. They're going to also show you what happens if you don't have enough places. So for example, on this one, notice that there's 2 decimals in the first part and 1 in the second part of this multiplication problem. But ultimately, when you multiply, you're only going to have the 90, and there's not enough places. So we're going to have to still move it 3, though, so you have to add that 0. So that's what they're going to talk about in the multiplying. Then they're also going to talk about division with decimals. Now, this one gets kind of convoluted, because honestly, folks, when it comes to dividing with decimal points, we typically are not going to do these by hand. But they are going to show you how to do that. They're going to say, first, you want to get rid of all the decimals. So, for example, you're going to get rid of all the decimals on this particular problem by moving the decimal place. So here's what it would look like. We're going to move the decimal all the way to the right on the 0.125. That was 3 places, which means we have to do the same thing to the top, moving it 3. On the bottom example here, we have to move it 2 places, and so that means we have to move it 2 on the top. So whichever one you have to move the most, you move both of them that many. And then you're going to go ahead and divide. But they also throw in, well, what if you need to reduce? So they throw in how to reduce by dividing both top and bottom by their greatest common denominator. They show you a little bit about how to do that. Here's some examples that they show you on how to reduce with the greatest common denominator. Again, what do you do if there's zeros on the end? You can just cross those off. So here's some examples of that, where we cross off the zeros and then we reduce. But again, ultimately, you're really not going to do this. You're going to use the calculator. So make sure that you know how to use that calculator, how you put that into your calculator, how you check your work, and those types of things. So I'm going to pull in an example that you're not going to see on the regular PowerPoint that's uploaded in the course, that just kind of shows you a little bit about how to use decimal points. So here's an example. We have a total dose of 0.930 milligrams. We're giving it in 3 equal doses. We want to know what's the amount of each dose. That's division. We want to divide this up into 3 doses. So we're going to take the 0.93 and divide it by 3. And all I did was put that into my calculator. So the top number goes into your calculator first. You hit the division button. Then you're going to put the bottom number in and hit the equals button to get the 0.31. So if at any point you have problems or questions over this week's material, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And have a great week.